At 11:43 p.m., Daniel heard footsteps running toward him. He was standing alone in the west hallway of St. Vincent's High School. Every classroom door was locked, every window was shut, and the hallway behind him was completely empty. Still, the footsteps were getting closer, fast, heavy.
Barely human. Mark raised his flashlight. The beam trembled across the darkness. Then he saw someone standing at the far end of the corridor. A boy, wearing an old-school uniform, head lowered, bare feet on the polished floor. Mark whispered, "Hey." The boy stopped. Slowly he lifted his head, and Mark realized something was terribly wrong. The boy's face was his own. Mark stepped backward. The emergency exit slammed shut behind him. Then every classroom door along the hallway opened at exactly the same time, and from inside each dark classroom came the sound of children whispering. "You're late." Mark's flashlight went out, and in the darkness, something whispered directly beside his ear. "You were supposed to leave before the bell." 3 hours earlier, Mark was having the most boring night of his week. He worked as a school maintenance supervisor and had spent years repairing everything teenagers managed to break. Broken faucets, jammed lockers, air conditioning units that sounded like jet engines, windows that somehow cracked without anyone knowing how. Nothing about St. Vincent's High School usually frightened him. It was just an old school. 4 floors, 2 classroom wings, a gymnasium, a library, an administrative building, and a long central hallway connecting everything together. The school had been built in 1978. Parts of it looked exactly like they had in the photographs hanging near the principal's office. Brown wooden doors, faded green walls, fluorescent lights, old trophy cases, polished floors that reflected the ceiling lights like thin sheets of water. During the day, the building was noisy. Students shouted between classes. Teachers complained about paperwork. Phones rang. Chairs scraped against floors. But after 6 in the evening, St. Vincent's became something else. Quiet, empty, almost too large for the number of people inside it. That Thursday night, Mark had stayed late because a pipe had burst behind the science laboratories. He finished the repair around 10:50 p.m. The rain outside had become heavy. The security guard, Mr. Alvarez, was supposed to be making rounds. Mark packed his tools and checked his phone. 3 missed calls, all from his younger sister. He called her back. She answered immediately. "You're still there?" "Yeah." "Mark, it's almost 11. I know. You said you'd be home at 10. I had a pipe burst." There was a pause. Then she sighed. "Just don't stay there too late." Mark smiled. "I won't." He hung up. He didn't know that those would be the last normal words anyone would hear from him that night. At 11:12 p.m., Mark finished locking the science wing. He turned off the lights. The hallway disappeared behind him. He walked toward the main entrance, keys jingling against his belt. Then he stopped. An elevator bell. Mark slowly looked toward the old service elevator. The elevator was on the other side of the building. It hadn't worked in years. He stared at it. The doors were closed. The indicator above them was dark. Mark waited. Nothing. He shrugged. Probably the electrical system. He kept walking. Then, this time, the elevator doors opened. Mark turned. The elevator interior was completely dark. He walked closer. The smell hit him first. Wet concrete, old dust, and something faintly sweet, like flowers that had been left in a vase too long. He looked inside. Nothing.
Then he noticed a small piece of paper taped to the back wall. It was yellow with age. Handwritten in black ink were 6 words. "Do not use the west hallway after the bell." Mark stared at it. He laughed quietly. Very funny.
Probably some student prank. He tore the paper down. Then he noticed something strange. The handwriting looked old. Not faded. Old. As if the ink had soaked into the paper decades ago. Mark crumpled it and threw it away. He didn't think about the note again. Not until 11:43. Mark was almost at the main entrance when the school bell rang. A single metallic tone echoed through the building. Mark stopped walking. He checked his phone. 11:43 p.m. The school bell wasn't programmed to ring at that time. He waited for the automatic announcement. Nothing came. Only silence. Then Mark heard something else. Footsteps. From the west side of the building. Slow. Measured. Mark frowned. He called out, "Mr. Alvarez?" No answer. He tried again. "Alvarez?" The footsteps stopped. Mark waited. Then came 3 knocks. From somewhere behind the wall. Mark's stomach tightened. He pulled out his flashlight. The west hallway was dark. He knew that hallway. Classrooms 104 through 112. A storage room. The old music room. And at the very end, a sealed fire door. The west hallway had been closed for renovations years ago, but renovations never happened. The school simply stopped using that section. Mark decided to investigate, not because he was brave, because he was annoyed. He wanted to know what was making the noise. He walked toward the west hallway. The lights flickered on one after another, except the last 3. Those remained dark. Mark reached the first classroom. Locked. Next. Locked. Next. Locked. Everything appeared normal until he noticed the trophy case. There was a reflection in the glass. Mark. His flashlight. The hallway behind him. He stopped. Something in the reflection was wrong. One of the classroom doors behind him was open. Mark turned. Every door was closed. He looked back at the glass. The door in the reflection was still open, and something was standing inside it. A small figure. Mark froze. He raised his flashlight toward the real door. Closed. He looked back at the reflection. The figure was gone. Mark stepped away. "Okay," he swallowed. "Time to go home." He turned, and the fire door at the end of the hallway was open. Mark knew that door was supposed to be locked. He had personally changed the padlock 2 months earlier. Now it stood open by about 6 inches. A strip of darkness waited beyond it. He walked closer. The air became colder, freezing. His breath became visible. Mark stopped. There was something taped to the wall beside the doorway, another handwritten note. He pulled it loose. This one said, "If the bell rings twice, do not look behind you." Mark stared at it, then laughed nervously. Someone had gone to an incredible amount of effort for a stupid prank. He crumpled the paper. Then the school bell rang again. Mark's smile disappeared. He looked up. The fluorescent lights buzzed, then flickered. He remembered the note. Something moved behind him. A soft scraping sound. Mark didn't turn. A breath, right behind his shoulder. Then a voice whispered, "Mark." He shut his eyes. The voice whispered again, "Mark." It sounded like his sister. Mark almost turned. Then he remembered her voice from the phone.
Just don't stay there too late, the voice behind him whispered. Please. Mark clenched his jaw. He stepped forward. One step, then another. He walked through the fire door without looking back. The door slammed shut behind him. Mark expected a storage area. Instead, he found another hallway. Long, straight, perfectly clean. Fluorescent lights stretched into the distance. Classroom doors lined both sides. Every door had a small black number. 101, 102, 103. Mark stared. Those classrooms shouldn't exist. He pulled out his phone. No signal. He opened the camera. The screen showed the hallway, but the camera showed something different. The hallway was full of students, dozens of them, sitting against walls, standing in doorways, walking silently, all wearing old uniforms. Mark dropped the phone. The screen went black. He picked it up. The hallway was empty again. He whispered, "What the hell?" Then he saw the floor. Wet footprints, bare feet, coming toward him. Mark stepped back. The footprints stopped in front of him. Then another appeared, and another. Mark ran. He sprinted toward the door behind him. Lights flickered overhead. He reached the fire door. Pulled. Nothing. Locked. No. He pulled harder. Nothing. The footprints kept appearing. Mark tried his keys. None worked. A classroom door opened. Room 107. Inside, desks, chalkboard, dust. Except one desk. Clean. A cassette recorder sat on it. It clicked on. A child's voice. Mark Green. Mark stopped breathing. Attendance. Pause. Mark Green? Mark whispered. No. The voice said, present. The recorder clicked off. Every door slammed shut. Mark ran again. He ran. The hallway stretched. Numbers changed. 108, 109, 110, 111, then 108 again. Mark stopped, turned. Same hallway, same lights. He checked his phone. 11:43 p.m. Frozen. Then it rang. Unknown caller. Mark answered. Hello? Static. Then his own voice. Don't answer the next call. Call ended. Immediately. Ringing again. He didn't answer. It stopped. Then started again. Then stopped. A notification. Missed call. Mark Green. Mark stared. He had just missed a call from himself. A bell rang 3 times. Lights went out. Darkness. Then emergency light. At the end stood the boy. Mark's face. The boy pointed behind him. Mark remembered. Don't look behind you. The boy whispered, You're standing in my place. Mark asked, Who are you? The boy smiled. Then behind Mark came hundreds of chairs scraping. Mark turned. Every classroom was full. All heads lifted. Mark screamed. He ran toward the boy. The boy grabbed his wrist, freezing. Find room 113. What? There is no room 113. That's why you have to find it. The boy vanished. Numbers changed. 112, then 113. A door. Mark opened it. Inside, photographs. Hundreds. One showed the west hallway. Date, 1986. 11 students entered. Next, 10 left. Mark understood. Something took people, and the school hid it. On the chalkboard, Mark Green, then present. Door slammed. Mark ran. Behind him, the boy appeared. Mark's face, older, empty eyes. You came late. I don't belong here. You said that too. Photographs showed Mark everywhere. Always him. Impossible. Then bell rang. Boy vanished. Door unlocked. Mark ran.
Hallway changed. Lights flickered. Doors opened. Mark ran. Fire door. Close. Someone grabbed him. The boy. Don't leave me. Mark broke free. Door burst open. He fell into normal hallway.
11:44 p.m. Only 1 minute passed. Wall where door was, gone. Mark ran outside. Mr. Alvarez, where were you? What, West Hallway? It was demolished 20 years ago. No records, no hallway, no room 113. Then archive. Clipping. 11 students missing. One name, Mark Green. Same face. Same boy. Note. He still comes when the bell rings. Phone buzzed. Voicemail. His voice. Then photo. West hallway. Mark inside. With the boy. Text. One more student.
Bell. Phone rang. St. Vincent's High School. Mark answered. Attendance. Mark Green. Silence. Then from inside. Present. Reflection showed hallway. Door marked 113.
Dark. Mark never returned. But 3 weeks later, a package arrived. Inside. Photo. Room 113. 11 desks. One empty. Board. A new name. Not Mark's. Yet. Absent today. At 11:43 p.m., the bell rang. Once. And somewhere inside, a chair scraped backward. If you heard that bell, would you open room 113? Or walk away? Tell me in the comments. And subscribe to After Hours, because some places don't forget you, and some names were never meant to stay missing.